Welcome to Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you very much for choosing to join into this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, if you can hear my neighbour's dog barking, then I'm very, very sorry. Now, in this episode, we're going to look at bleaching Afro-Caribbean hair. We've looked at this kind of stuff before. I've done videos on it personally, but I always like to see what other people are up to. Now, this is a great content creator here on YouTube. And I'm going to link her channel down in the description below. But it's Sanja. You will have come across her content before. She makes fantastic cutting videos. But I was kind of perusing the internet looking for people's take on colouring curly textured, coily textured hair. As I've got a few people who have started to watch that video that I made, which I'll also link in the description down below, so you can watch that as well if you like, which is turning very, very curly Afro hair texture into white platinum, result in a kind of fastest to end result possible style, which is always what I try to achieve with these techniques. Anyway, let's jump into this video and see how she gets on and what she does with the hair in terms of saturation, sectioning, and all those kind of things. Doing some little pre-section here, making nice clean sections. Clearly only going to be working on this potential top section, I'm guessing at the moment, but I could be wrong. She could just be working with very cleanly sections, 6 sections throughout this top here, and I think I'm probably going to be correct in saying that she's only going to be working through this top as she's using a highlighting technique, and that could make it quite spotty if you were working through shorter sides, dependent on how the hair is going to be cut. That's one thing to bear in mind, everybody, especially if you're new to this game, is that if the hair is short and you put foils in it and it's going to be cut even shorter, it can look dotty and very separated. So you've got to think about where the haircut's going to go in the future and how you're going to be styling the hair as well, if you're going to sweep the hair or anything like that. I mean, I believe this is probably going to be worn naturally due to the fact it has a very, very tight curl to it. So it would be probably unlikely that you're going to spend hours and hours and hours blow drying, straightening, smoothing, unless that was the look that you wore, kind of had it chemically straightened or relaxed, and then you probably wouldn't want to necessarily bleach it because it could be pretty damaging for the condition. And it's amazing hair, so why not embrace the natural texture? Now remember, when we're bleaching onto very curly textured hair, the hair textures can break down more quickly, can create damage more quickly, so that's something to bear in mind, and they can lift very, very fast. Now it's kind of a known fact that it's lower in protein, so the structure of the hairs, they're not as bold and strong as some more kind of, say, like European, Middle Eastern hair textures, and that is part of the curl texture. A little while ago on TikTok, I did talk about this, and it was quite contentious, but I do have the scientific information to back that up should you want it. Or if you would like to go and see those videos over on TikTok, then be my guest. Saturation here is very good, using very, very fine sections, being careful not to overlap those previously pre-lined ends, which is really, really important when you're looking at saturation as a whole. Obviously, you want to get a copious amount of product onto the hair to make sure that you completely cover and evenly saturate all of the hairs that you're trying to lighten. But you've got to be mindful that when you close that foil up, that you don't push that product down onto that old hair, especially if you're trying to retain the quality of that older hair that's already been previously pre-lightened. So the ends have obviously been lifted a lot in this particular instance. We can see that from how bright they are. They're a bit murky, so there was previously probably a violet toner on there or something similar, and it's unlikely that you're going to be able to lift this too much past pale yellow without causing yourself lots and lots of damage. The platinum effect that I was talking about, that I created previously, more of an optical illusion than an actual color. And the reason it's an optical illusion is because it's very, very difficult to lift this depth of hair to pale yellow without causing untold amount of damage to the hair. So doing all the right things here, because she's kind of got it in foil, it means that you're going to trap in some of that heat within the hair, within the foil, and you're also going to stop it drying out. And you're not going to trap in loads of heat, and I did a video all about kind of foil trapping heat a while ago, but it doesn't retain heat like you would when you put it, you know, wrap it around a chicken or a turkey and put it in the oven. But it does trap in a little bit of the body heat, especially as they start to stack up on each other. So there is going to be a little bit more heat in those sections, but it's not a huge amount. And that video is over on the channel. Do you want to go and see it and kind of understand how that all works? Okay, going straight in. Oh, my bad. Right, surprise U-turn, going in on the bottom here. Now, obviously, clearly using the foil now for incubation and stop the product drying out, as we just previously mentioned, but is going in for the full scalp bleach effect. Okay, so this is something not dissimilar to what I did in my video where I was kind of treating the ends first, and then allowing the ends to process first. She's gone in with fine sections and foil, etc. But what I will say is that those sections are quite long around the sides. They're over 1 centimeter in length. So she is going to struggle to get even and consistent lift from a section that is over 1 centimeter. And the reason for that is because you've got the heat from the scalp, which emits for about 1 centimeter or 1 inch, which is roughly 36.6 degrees, unless you've got a temperature, or, you know, on the human average between 36.6 and 36.8, in that kind of realm. Okay, now it doesn't deviate a huge amount from that unless we're poorly, or the room temperature is extremely hot, but even our core temperature stays around that kind of position. So it's very, very important to remember when we have that hair that is over 1 centimeter, that is the area where you can kind of get a hot roots effect, where you get lots and lots of lift on that root area and less lift on the ends, which can obviously be a problem. Going back in now, doing that final 1 centimeter, very, very important to leave that final 1 centimeter out, get those ends lifted, and then you get a consistent, even lift throughout. I'll be intrigued to see as to whether she's going to cut the sides. The application of this lightener is beautiful, by the way. The thickness of the saturation is absolutely spot on, because you really do want to get a good amount of product onto the hair. And if you don't get that volume of products, and if you're stingy with your lightener, you're not going to get the results that you are hoping for from these techniques. So I'm sure she's going to go back through and paint all of these sections. At the backwash now, applying a toner, you can see that the root area did lift okay, but down here it does look quite yellowy. So it's quite a warm end result, and that's not indicative of what you'd expect, right? Even from the best lift onto a curly textured that is of this natural level, you're going to see a lot of yellow. In the video that I did for turning curly Afro textured hair to platinum, I used a high lift tint to avoid needing a second lift as a toner. So I got lift and tone simultaneously, and that gave me that result. This is being done with a normal toner, I believe, and so therefore, there we go, so development time for 10 minutes. Looks like a reasonably even, let's see, it looks like a reasonably even, clean result. A little bit hot rootish though, I think, if we look at it just here, okay, because these ends, some of those sections may have needed to be a bit finer. She may have needed to, and she was obviously battling with the fact that she already had previously got pre-liner on the hair. But, you know, you can see some of that warmth kicking through that area, whereas there is a bit more of a cleaner, cooler look to these ends, and then that whiter, cleaner result. Very, very challenging job, even for somebody as talented as this lady is with her hairdressing skills. Those sections potentially needed to be a bit finer, the ones that went into the foils, because it's very hard to get that saturation through those sections, especially when you're trying not to hit the ends as well. A very, very, very difficult lift indeed. So I think this is just the pre-tone, because the tutorial says that it ends up being lilac-y. So this is probably a pre-tone. I don't know if they were going for this look or the pre-tone, or they've used this as a pre-tone, and or they had ideas of doing it platinum and it didn't work out and they've done a pre-tone, because obviously sometimes we've got to pivot, right? There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's a wrong move. It's just that sometimes you have to pivot what we were doing to make it work for ourselves. So let's see what she does next. Okay, I think we're going in with another colour by the looks of it. Unlikely that that's some kind of cutting technique. Okay, yes, exactly as I was saying, going with a secondary toner now, applying it to that root area first. We can see that warmer band of colour going through there now. We've got the kind of lighter roots, warmer band, and again around these side sections where the hair was longer than 1 centimetre, very, very difficult to apply bleach to that area. Just ad hoc leave it there to process without it lifting better at the root where it's hotter. We've got that result here. I'm assuming this smoky lavender colour is going to drop it to maybe a 9, maybe even an 8, depending on how much tone they want to see from the end result. But, you know, back to application, when you take those sections, if you're going to put them in foil, you've really got to work that product side to side, really get those sections working. It takes a very, very long time to apply these techniques. And that is something that when we're doing curly textured Afro hair is one of the separating factors, is that you have to allow more time. That it's everybody should be able to do curly textured Afro hair. Everyone should understand it. Everyone should offer it. I believe I offer it, and I do a lot in the salon. But it does take me longer because of the kind of technical nature of cutting it and applying it on very curly hair types. It just adds more time. So it's not that I think a lot of stylists aren't able to do it, they're just not able to comprehend the added time to these services. You should absolutely be offering every hair type in your salon or wherever you work. You may individually want to focus on one technique, whether that's cutting, balayaging, whatever, but you probably should be able to, in my opinion, offer curly hair textures. If that's what you focus on, colouring or cutting, you should have curly hair textures in there. So I always believe that, you know, we can learn new things, but I think one of the biggest hurdles to get over psychologically when you haven't been automatically gone through beauty school or college or whatever doing curly textured hair is that the added time, because of the nature of the hair, because it's harder to handle, harder to manage, smaller sections, etc., do require more time, more energy, and therefore more concentration because of those factors. And that's something that puts a lot of people off when they're coming to deal with these particular types of hairs. So finish the toner here, coming in with a little bit of combing through, trying to get even saturation on that hair. I'll be interested to see what these side sections turn out like once she's finished. You can develop this one for 20 minutes, so this is the full Monty. There we go, and that has given you that smoky lavender effect through the sides and a slightly blonder feel through that top section. So I think she's going to come in and cut it now, which we are going to probably come back and see another day. And here we have the end result. Quick little look at the end result. Obviously through these sides, dropped it down to a level 8 for sure, with the amount of depth and tone they've got in there to, you know, kind of get that amount of purple, lavendery, smoky colour in there. Through these ends, where the ends were obviously lighter previously, that's given us this more blonde effect throughout. And also the toner application, you know, where it was heavily applied to the root area and then kind of combed through, the lesser saturation will offer less tone and less depth. So that's why we're getting this more silvery, smoky, violety result through these end sections, and a kind of deeper, more purpley colour towards the root area. I'm not 1000% sure that on warmer, darker skin tones, I love ashy, violety, smoky colours. I'm not a big fan. I know the video I did was like platinum white. That was the request of the client, right? That was a client video. I had, you know, not necessarily steered him in that direction. This may be the case for this, right? But I think when you're looking at kind of skin tones, warm, darker skin tones, cool, flat hair colour, I think they kind of clash visually. It's always a request of the clients, but I think that's a psychological thing, because obviously when hair's done badly at home, it's always warm, orangey, all those things. And so therefore the kind of client perception is that if it's cool, flat, ashy, violet, lavendery, smoky, all those things, it looks more, you know, deliberate. But in terms of end result, obviously utilising that secondary toner there to drop the level, to kind of hide those few application issues that came up, because, you know, they are avoidable to all degrees. It's just it means that it's a much longer process to get to that perfect result. Sometimes it's not even necessarily achievable because of previously existing hair color like she had on the ends. It depends on whether you're going to chop that off or not. If you're not going to chop that off, then obviously it's a bit more of a difficult situation. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you've taken something away from it. Fine sections are the answer to nearly all hair colouring and lifting results. And I'm just not a big fan of these type of colours on dark warm skin, but that's just a humble personal opinion. Not a huge fan of those cool colours on those warm skin tones. Just my opinion. Obviously, if that's your hair preference and you love it and you walk around and you're confident, then obviously be my guest. Don't listen to me. But if you're thinking about what suits your skin tone, you might want to go for a more neutral, slightly warmer kind of colour to complement that skin tone. Ashy, flat, smoky, whatever, can, I believe, be a little clashing in that area. But look, I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. I'm just going to give you my opinions. Have a great week, and I'll see you again next time for another life of the life of hair. And I'll see you again for another episode of the Life of Hair.